You have to live each moment as best you can. We're human. We all get distracted, but you try to focus on living each moment in purpose to connect with the people that are in front of you, to focus on active listening, not just in one ear and out the other, and to live with thought, to live with intention, to live with integrity. And in terms of serving the public, to serve as a model for being human.
Welcome to another episode of Threads of Enlightenment, guys. I'm excited about this. I'm so excited I can't even talk right away. Here, as my custom is to stop and honor our guests because I know they're coming with a couple of things very expensive. Time. 24 hours has been offered to every one of us. And so I want to honor Julie for coming and spending some of this quality stuff because once it's spent, it's spent. And she is willing to come here and spend some of that with us. The other is the journey. She's coming here to allow us the opportunity to enter into it. It created who she is today. And so we want to honor her that she is affording us both the time and the opportunity to enter into her. Julie, thank you so much for coming into Threads of Enlightenment.
Ken, it's an honor. Thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this as much as you are.
As my custom here, I love to load this. As soon as the person comes, I want to toss this heavy stuff at you guys. And I alluded that there are two journeys that we embark on. First is that individual, independent one, and then there's the interdependent. And my question to you is this: how do you serve mankind?
By being right here with you right now, Ken. It's being in the moment. It is connecting to people. This is my whole reason for being here. And my purpose is to help everyone shine that inner light as bright as they can. And to do that, you have to be purposeful. You have to live each moment as best you can. We're human. We all get distracted, but you try to focus on living each moment in purpose to connect with the people that are in front of you, to focus on active listening, not just in one ear and out the other, and to live with thought, to live with intention, to live with integrity. And in terms of serving the public, to serve as a model for being human. That I talk about fireflies. I see human fireflies. We strive for growth, not for perfection. We make mistakes. And that's part of being human. And that's part of the beauty of the whole thing. Serving everywhere by seeing people everywhere I can and connecting with those that are kindred spirits, just like right now. Right.
That is awesome. Another custom that we have is to follow. We're trying to follow, Julie, the program that they tell us. You know, we are born and we hang out in certain spaces. The first space that we hang out for a few years is called the family. In this space here, usually there's a couple of things that happen to us. I call it the beginnings of our beginnings, if you will. We learn communication skills. We'll learn a couple of things. And sometimes, in most cases, I would say about 99% of the time, and let me rephrase that, 100% of the time, we will experience some type of trauma here within this family unit. And so at this place here, it gives birth to you and I. We began to perceive the world a certain way, and we now begin to make judgments and all these things there. What was your family unit like?
Dysfunctional, to put it mildly. But I explained to people growing up in a dysfunctional family has trained me to be able to see it in other families and in other places. I was adopted. Ken, during a time when it was kept quiet. It was considered unconventional. These aren't things that were supposed to be done.
Mm-hmm.
I was what they used to call a gray market baby, bought and paid for through an agreement directly with my biological parents. And at that time when you were adopted, okay, so you go through this trauma of birth. Now you're adopted. So there's an underlying abandonment issue you begin with. And then it's not just the physical family. Then there's this enculturation of the people around you. So I grew up hearing from people, even within the community, that I wasn't real. Well, you're not a real child. It's like, well, if I'm not a real child, then what am I? You're not real. And your parents were so brave. Your mother was so brave in adopting you because you could be a serial killer. You could be anything. They
Wow.
don't know what your background is. That's a pretty heavy trip to put on a little kid.
Yeah.
And it makes you very aware of the world in different ways. Then I went through as a child, my mother got divorced, and that was during a time when you weren't supposed to do that, that back to that society
Hmm.
enculturation. So I immediately became labeled as a broken child coming from a broken home, wasn't going to do much of anything, was doing the same work that I did in school, which had been top of the class before. And now all of a sudden it became bottom of the class. It didn't matter. And it was that prejudgment that you must be a troublemaker, having done nothing or nothing different. But, that's part of that enculturation that comes through. It put me in a position with other, what they considered at-risk kids that didn't quite fit in, weren't doing things the right way. We were going to be the troublemakers. And you wonder how many people just say, well, that's what's expected of me. Let me just step into those shoes.
Yeah.
But what it's done for me is embracing that. I have a special place in my heart. And in terms of working with troubled youth, teenagers, especially teenagers, because being classified and put in that grouping, I saw how bright so many of these people were. And maybe they don't think the same as everyone else. Maybe they approach things differently. Maybe there's a different perspective. But my gosh, they were so incredibly bright. And there's a light there that in creative that we need in the world. We live in this society because once you go through that childhood trauma and you're trying to figure things out, now you've got this whole society that it's like enculturation that tells you what you're supposed to do and what you're not supposed to do. We begin when we're in elementary school and we hear, "Oh, you can grow up to be anything that you want. Think big, use your imagination and be creative." And then what happens as soon as we become teenagers, they go, "Oh, well, now it's time to start thinking about your health insurance and your K and what kind of job are you going to be doing that's going to help you take care of a family, take care of yourself." And those dreams that you had as, a little kid, it's time to shelve those.
Yeah.
And my point is, no, it's not time to shelve them. We need a better system to show us how to bring those dreams to fruition and how to
Yeah.
get the tools that we need to find new pathways. One of the reasons why I've written the book that I wrote, The Extraordinary Power of Fireflies, I talk about more than 20 different people around the globe that are just doing incredible things in all different fields and in all different ways. And the purpose of that, I've had a very unconventional life, did not follow what you're supposed to do in each part of your life. And the people that I write about have also not had unconventional lives. And for me, it's kind of pulling the curtains back to say we're all trying to get to the top of the mountain, but there's more than one path to take. And Jungian psychology, Carl Jung once said, if the path before you is really clear, you're probably on somebody else's.
Hmm.
And we have to find our own paths that are authentic, that are true to ourselves. And it's not a one size fits all. And we need to encourage that brilliance of people who learn differently, people who have creative thoughts and want to change the world for the better in different ways, that approach things with a new perspective, to be open to that so that we're all constantly learning.
Programmers are going to fight that type of thinking all the way through because they need the cogs, if you will, to manage the wheel. Those that you're talking about the outliers. The outliers have never been in the system. They've always been outside of the system. And the system, and when you look at the outliers, majority of them, all of them actually are successful because they're
Exactly.
not a part of the system that they have. The system itself is not designed to make them successful. The system is designed to keep them working
That's exactly
and
right.
working and working until they're 65 and then die and then be replaced. And that's what that system is set up for. Now, the outliers are the ones like you And those are the ones that are born and birthed through trauma.
Yeah.
And they are never going to fit into any system that is normal because it repulses them from the day they look at it. It's like, oh my God, they just can't stand it. And so those are the ones that are usually the coaches, the folks like you. The outliers are the ones that are awakened to try to reach into the system where it's full of cogs. And we saw a movie called The Matrix, and to pull those cogs out, to
Yeah.
dismantle that, and that's what your book and the Fireflies is about, is to pull those people out, create this community, to dismantle all the madness that is out there that is causing the pain. The outliers are the ones. So here you are, Julie. You are an outlier from the beginning in many different ways. As this outlier was moving through life, what was your relationship outside to others? I know you had a traumatic beginning all over. I mean, you're just living in it. There's a cauldron. I could see the Macbeth with the witches just turning you inside out. As you are in that cauldron, what was your relationship to others outside of the family?
When I was failing in school, I was
Hmm.
the one who would have been listed um, in that high school yearbook as most likely not to finish high school.
Hmm.
Um, and having my parents divorced, where all of a sudden it put me into a different category. And people who I had grown up with, who I had thought of as friends, dealing with people outside of my family, they were no longer allowed to hang with me. And what does that do? It makes you kind of rethink what's important, what's not important. I had the lucky serendipitous opportunity to attend an alternative school in
Hmm.
an inner city neighborhood that allowed me to interact with people of all generations, advisors, other students on a truly authentic level
Yeah.
that completely changed my whole playing field. Because other people, well, it wasn't something that you hid, that you had trauma or that you knew what dysfunctional families were. Everybody had a story.
Yeah.
We pushed into these cultural quote unquote norms where it's supposed to be that, oh, everybody goes to high school and there are cliques and there are mean people and there are bullies and this and that. And do we really need that? I lucked out in finding in terms of school that no, this was a place where there weren't any of those things and we could deal with each other one on one. And it was building a community. And a lot of those lessons have stayed with me throughout the years to this day. If I want to work on a project, I want it to be multi-generational.
Yeah.
I get so tired of this is going to be a youth-led movement or this is going to be a seniors only movement. And it's like, no, I need those people that are elderly because they have so much to share. And I need those people who have life experience because they have so much to share. And those people who are starting out, making a name for themselves because they have thoughts. But I also need that 10-year-old who's at the beginning of the journey who also remembers the importance of playing,
Hmm.
of using imagination and creativity. And it's together when we create these communities together and we come with all these different perceptions and perspectives, that's where we really thrive.
Yeah. And when you're heading into college, as they say, did you choose that route? And if you did choose college, what field of study did you pick and why did you pick it?
I am probably the best student and the worst student according to society. Actually, because I thought that I hated education. And it was when I went to an alternative school in the 70s that I went, no, I don't like the system, but I
Mhm.
love learning. My family moved from the Midwest to San Francisco, and I was not happy in school. And I left, and I actually talked to a dean of a college in Stockton, California, to give me admission just to let me gain high school credit because I
Yeah.
loved what they were doing. I loved the concept of that. I've always loved learning, but in different ways. I ended up studying marine biology and studying in Australia, and that was very exciting.
Why marine biology?
Okay, here's your story.
I wanted to know the why, you know?
I worked in politics. I was the youngest person, that just kind of fell into politics to work on Jimmy Carter's presidential campaign. I was not old
Mhm,
enough to vote. I was on his national staff working
mhm,
on press advance. I actually write the story in the book, and this was thanks to a mother who said, "Get out of the house and go do something." And I was more afraid of what she was going to say than not show up. And that led to, over the years, another presidential campaign. It led me to working for a congressman for a year and a half on legislative issues and environmental issues. And I was young. I also loved the theater. So I was playing in that, and I still wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I was really burned out, and I took a job as a snorkeling instructor with an international resort on the coast of Mexico. My mother called this my beach bum days. Here she goes. I don't know what she's doing, her beach bum days. But teaching snorkeling, it gave me the quiet. It gave me the
mhm.
time to really kind of connect with nature. I started learning that there were seasons to the sea and picking up just the flow and ebb of it
Yeah.
as it were with things that I was seeing from a daily basis. And I met an older gentleman who is what they call in the field a shark caller. He would go out into the ocean and he would say, "Now you go out, Julie. You come back and tell me what you see, what you experience." And I'd go out and I'd come back and I'd say, "There's nothing. It's the reefs are dying. There's no fish." And he would go out and he would sit. Talk about being a fisherman. He would
Mm.
simply sit. And within 15, 20 minutes, there'd be fish. I'd see nurse sharks on the bottom. The water clarity was incredible. In the background, the dolphins would be coming in. And it's like, this guy's got a special connection. I don't quite understand what it is. And I'm dealing with these seasons of the sea. I want to know more. I want to know more. So I came back to the States and said, I think I want to study marine biology. Well, that's great until you start looking at the cost of university. But part of positioning and finding new paths is always finding another way. It would have
Yeah.
been really easy to say, "No, I can't afford this, and this is crazy. This isn't going to happen." I found an alternative where I could leave the country and pay a minimal tuition that my tuition plus the plane fare plus living there wasn't even the cost of 4 classes that I would be taking here in the States, and I took it, and I took advantage of the opportunity, and I moved to Australia and went to study marine science.
Wow. That's a wonderful story as to how it came about, because people gloss over that, but there's a lot of insight in that from you telling us the wisdom and the insights that you gained from watching that man observation and how it changed your perspective as to where you want to go in life. And here you are from watching that whole thing.
Well, and that's part of, what I work at sharing with others and teaching others. And, I found different pathways to find my way. People I've written about have done the same and found their own paths. But I came back to the United States. I was living in the Washington, D.C. area, and I was working with the National Aquarium, and I used to deal with high school students all the time who would say, "I
Hmm.
think this is really what I want to do." Coming from their own trauma, from their own background, and people who couldn't afford to go to college were looking at different ways of, can I do this? What can I do? And I encouraged them all, just, what? The degree a lot of times isn't as important. The education is. And find a place, volunteer, find different pathways to get where you want to go. We live in this society, Ken, where we have these CEOs of companies or the heads of organizations, and it's always assumed that they went to the top schools, that they got the top degrees, that their family took care of all these things. And you start working with them. And my path took me to work within a Fortune 500 company. And I found a lot of the different executives that I worked with did not have the background that you would think that they would
Hmm.
have. Pulling the curtains back, they simply allowed everyone to presume,
Hmm.
"Oh, Ken, you're working in this position. You must be a PhD in this area. You must have gone to an Ivy League school. You must have done this or this or this. And it wasn't true.
Yeah.
The people who made it to the top had found alternative pathways. They had made it on their own. They had created their own path. But how did they do it? And it started back from within, of finding that inner spark, that inner light that says, I'm here to do something. And whether society says it's okay to do, it's not okay to do, I've got these blinders on. And this is how I need to serve. This is what I want to accomplish. These are my goals. And to move forward in that direction without thinking about it, everything else becomes so easy to become excuses. I keep trying to do something. So I'll have clients say, I keep trying this and it's not working. So that's my sign. That must be my sign from the universe to say, I'm on the wrong path. I shouldn't be doing this. And I need to give it up. And I come back and I say, no, it's your sign. You need to pivot and find another door.
Yeah.
It's not that sign to give up. You only fail if you stop. Other than that, you keep trying and you keep trying and you keep trying. And you find new pathways and you find new ways to learn, but they become excuses. I don't have a degree, or I have the wrong degree. I have a degree, but it's not the right one. And we set up all these obstacles for ourselves instead of saying, this is really what I want and I want to go after it. I deserve it. I'm going to find new ways to make things happen. And when you take
So
that attitude and you start connecting with other people, things begin to happen.
how did you navigate it from, again, you had the desire that you wanted to help and so forth and help kids and help people and stuff. How did you navigate from that and studying something totally different to where you are today? How did that process take place?
My biggest change, I came back, I was in Washington, D.C. I worked as director of programs for the National Aquarium. I worked with the National Zoo and I worked with the Smithsonian all at the same time. And today, years later, it sounds like how impressive. Well, the truth is, Ken, I was working all three positions because nothing paid me anything. They used to do these big photo things in the newspaper when people were still really reading newspapers of what people make and what women make. And every now and then they would put my picture in there. I was always at the bottom of the page, second to last. There was actually a woman who worked as an actress for a local theater company who only worked 3 months a year, who made less money than I did. So here I am, all these three things. And nothing is paying. And I'm working with all of these nonprofit organizations. And I started noticing why are these people working with nonprofits? Why am I working within the aquarium? Because we want to accomplish something. I want to help people connect with nature and the environment. And I have a list of things that I'm trying to do, but we can't do them because there's not the money there.
Yeah.
Nonprofits. It's time for the next fundraising campaign and it's time for the next fundraising campaign. Didn't we just finish one? Can't we go and do the things that we said we wanted to do? No, because we have to do another fundraising campaign. I had a staff, my education staff would say, Julie, what's in the budget? Can we do something for next month? And I kid you not, we had a small wishing well in the front of the aquarium. And I would say, go and see how many pennies are in there. We'll clean them up and whatever's in there, that's your education budget for next year. And we had this attitude within the environmental community that we were struggling to do everything, but we were righteous.
Yeah.
Big corporations, these were the bad guys. They were greedy. But I said, but they've got the money. No,
Yeah.
corporations, these are the big, bad, greedy guys. And I thought about it and I went, companies and corporations aren't greedy. People are greedy.
Hmm.
So there are people running corporations that are incredibly greedy, but there were people in the environmental community that were pretty greedy too.
Hmm.
And I thought if there are people who are greedy, there must be people who aren't and are doing what they're doing to try to make a difference and want to create something new. And these guys have money. And again, why we go back? Do we have the right degree? Did we do the right thing? I'd studied marine science. Nobody ever taught me how to be a business person. Nobody had ever
Yeah.
taught me how to bring in the bigger bucks. No, and I realized too, which I teach today, that I had made my way up through the ranks of the aquarium, but nobody had ever taught me how to be a good manager or a good leader, a good director. I based everything that I did based on knowing that I had had really some bad bosses and I didn't want to be that way.
Yeah.
Well, that's fine. And that gives you a good start, but it doesn't really teach you how to lead people. So I got the opportunity. I got a phone call from an architect. Here I am in Washington, D.C. I got a phone call from an architect who was working for a man who was well on his way to becoming a millionaire, since has become a billionaire, who had an idea for transforming Las Vegas.
Hmm.
And he loved the idea of putting an aquarium into a new big hotel resort. He wanted to have dolphins. He wanted to have an environmental theme. And I thought it was crazy. And I said to him, oh my gosh, please don't do this. I had visions in my head. Don't judge a book by a cover, right? I had visions in my head of this horrible little roadside hotel that wanted to put dolphins in the back swimming pool. Maybe they were going to teach them how to pull slot machines. And I was like, please just don't do this. And he said something that changed everything. He said, I'm not asking you, should we do this? Not asking you to make that judgment. Should we? I'm asking you, can we?
Mm.
And it made me sit back and I said, wait a minute, you know what? These guys are looking at me as the director of programs for the National Aquarium. I have to be honest. Yes, you can do this. You have to meet certain criteria, but you can
Yeah.
do this. And the next thing I knew, we want to fly you out here just so we can talk to you. My boss
Mm.
wants to talk to you and he wants to grill you. And I was like, if you guys will leave me alone, I'll come out to Las Vegas and talk to you. And I came out and I met the man, Steve Wynn, behind this vision.
Yeah.
I I asked for everything. I was terrified because the environmental community said, no, there's no such thing as good people in corporations. And I thought, well, he seems like a nice guy. He seems like the biggest animal rights activist I've ever met. Turns out he was. But I thought, I'm not sure I can trust him. So I better ask for 3 times
Hmm.
more than anybody needs. If this is the average, the size of the dolphins need of a pool, we need to go 3 times bigger. I asked for the moon and the stars. I don't want blank tanks for dolphins to swim around. We need an artificial coral reef. And I will only put animals in here that are in really substandard facilities and cannot be released to the wild. I would want to give them a home. And if it's a place where they're not pushed to do shows or performances, or then we can talk. And he said yes to everything. And then Ken, I took it an extra step. I said, Las Vegas is the 8th largest school district in the United States. I need to do education programs and they have to be for free because you're a corporation and we need to be providing these opportunities for free. I can't have kids traipsing in through your hotel and casino. I need a separate entranceway for them where school buses can come. And I can't have them going through the facility at the same time as your guests, your hotel guests, and people who are gambling. They need the facility themselves. So I can't possibly open to the public or anybody else until at least 11 o'clock in the morning, because before then, we need to belong to the school kids. And he said yes to everything. And and it was a concept of what can happen if you have this environmental activist that instead of fighting against this big Fortune 500 corporation, works hand in hand with them. And what
Yeah.
I learned was not only was I able to set new standards for animal care around the world, this is a hotel and a casino. There are a lot of different moving parts to that. There are retail operations. Well, I got to have my say in retail. You can't be selling fur coats in your retail outlet or things that are environmentally wrong,
Hmm.
because then it's in complete contradiction to what we're trying to do for animals here. And I would hear, get Julie on the phone, whatever she wants to do in terms of retail, that's what we're going to do. I began working with chefs of different restaurants. But instead of saying, I don't want you serving this particular fish or meal because they're caught with bad fishing practices, I would go in and say, this is what you're serving. Here is a sustainable alternative. Here's the
Yeah.
price difference. Hopefully it's the same or maybe for a few pennies more. you can switch. And I started to learn people in all these different areas, from those working in uniform control to people working in the restaurants. They all really wanted to have the opportunity to do something, to serve, to help the environment, to make things better. And I had a whole workforce where we were able to create a whole community around that. It wasn't just having school kids in. I used to do programs where we would dress these kids up as a dolphin. Well, to do that, I need some kind of costume or outfit. I want to show them all
Yeah.
the different body parts. Well, who's going to do this? I go to my uniform control people. They're dressing people from bellhops to cocktail waitresses. And it's like, yeah, but I need you to see if you can help me create some kind of an outfit that's going to be like a dolphin, and show me the difference between that, maybe another outfit of a land animal. And now they're serving, and it's sparking a whole new community, and they're
Yeah.
feeling that they're part of something really bigger. And that's been the huge goal today, is to know that everybody, I believe, really wants to be part of something bigger. Everybody wants to be part of community. I believe that all of us, every single person walking this planet wants the same thing. We want to be seen, we want to be heard, and we want to know that we're part of something greater than ourselves. And we
Yeah.
just need the opportunity to make those connections.
Talk to me, Julie, about the progress of the book. How did it come about? And again, the community, the extraordinary power of the Fireflies, and how did you come up with that name and tie it into that community that you are putting together?
One of the first things, Ken, that they teach you in biology is that everything is connected.
Hmm.
The spider in the forest is connected to the bear, is connected to the people who walk there. We're all connected. That's your first layer. And then we get this next layer that is kind of the quantum physics, that science of everything, the matrix.
Hmm.
Everything is connected. Now it's connected on a bigger level. We get that spiritual level. Everything is connected. We're all one. It's that Buddhist principle. How do I treat others? There are no others.
Hmm.
We're one. All of these different layers, and realizing everything is connected. If we want to move forward in terms of making the environment better, I can't do that without realizing how it's connected to social justice. So I have to learn about social justice, and it's not enough. That's also connected to economics. So now I need to
Hmm.
be knowing about economics and what pulls it all together, and how do we reach people through the arts. We need the arts. I could sit here and lecture the science of this and that, and it's been a joke. Simon Sinek, who is a great speaker and leader, once said, when Martin Luther King Jr. stood up, he didn't say, I have a 10-point plan. He stood up and said, I have a dream. That's what we relate to. That's the importance of the arts. We learn and we connect the best through our emotional centers. I can talk about something, but somebody creates a piece of artwork and it speaks directly to somebody's heart center. That makes a bigger impact.
Hmm.
And that's where we make that emotional connection with each other. So realizing all of these things were connected, I started out by saying, well, I need to write about this. And as I started writing about this, I wanted to also write about my very unconventional pathway that I've taken.
Yeah.
And then I started thinking, well, I could see the future. The book is done. And if I were sitting in an audience listening to myself talk, I'd go, yeah, well, that was good for her. I'm glad she could do all these things. I can't do all these things. So I came up with this idea where I wanted to include other people who had also followed unconventional pathways
Hmm.
to do really terrific things. I wanted to write a book. My goal was to write something that was not a difficult read. I actually sat, Ken, in bookstores, and I would ask people what was important to them when
Yeah.
they read a book. And I would get things like I was told by a number of people that they don't like books with long chapters because
Hmm.
it's like, I've got to go on. I can only read this much. And I don't like stopping in the middle of the chapter. And I thought, that's a really good point, because I can see that. So maybe I'm going to take in what they've said, and I'm going to do 4 small subchapters under each chapter so that it's an easy start and finish. I want to
Yeah.
list 2 different groups within each chapter that are doing amazing things. And I want to end each chapter with an exercise to help you take this from theory to make it work in practice in your life. And I joked around with some fellow authors who, because I love hanging out in used bookstores. And I said, the ultimate to me is the day that I find a dog-eared copy of my book. I don't want it sitting on a shelf. I want to see a
Yeah.
dog-eared. I want to see somebody who's highlighted it and written in the corners in the edge to know that it's really being used. That will be how I know that I've really made it. But this was an amazing journey, because writing a book is a journey.
Yeah.
I wanted to highlight people around the world doing things. And I started with people who I had the list of 20 people who, if I had mentioned them, you'd probably go, I think I remember hearing a story about this person. This sounds kind of familiar to me. And I thought, let me highlight them and bring them to the forefront. And I have an amazing publisher who said, if you're going to talk the talk, let's walk the walk. What about reaching out to all these people? Let's let them know that you want to incorporate them in the book. And let's let them, because we know a lot of things that are printed in the press aren't necessarily true. Let's get their take on it and get them to approve anything that you've written so that they're comfortable with it. Great idea. So this is Ken in the middle of the pandemic. So nobody's going anyplace working at this. And I'm reaching out around the world to these people to try to incorporate them into the book. And I found out every single person that I had hoped to incorporate originally, every single one was a fraud. Not one of them was
Wow.
authentic. Not one of them was doing the things that they said that they were doing. As I would get closer to that inner circle, people would say to me, why would you write about this person?
Wow.
What a jerk. They didn't follow through with anything that they said that they would follow through. And I went, height of the pandemic, and I'm going, is there nobody good in the world? I'm not finding anything. And it's like people today following influencers going, oh, they've got this
Yeah.
perfect life. And you go, this,
Yeah.
and I'm doing this with, oh, these are great role models, going, oh dear, no, they're not. They're not good role models. And my publisher said, you know what? I want you to take a couple weeks off. Now think about it, shift your energy, shift your gears, and then we're going to come back to it and you're going to start from the beginning. And that's exactly what I did. And she said, and this time you're going to dive deeper. And that's exactly what I did.
Mhm.
And I had different occurrences. Wyatt Moore wrote in her book, She Would Be King. She had a line in there where she said, kindred souls and kindred spirits are destined to meet. And I reached out across the globe, and I found people from the United States to Europe to Africa to Asia that are all what I call fireflies. And I define a firefly as someone who sees beyond what is to
Mhm.
what can be. And then they take
Yeah.
action to create a better reality. And every one of these people was doing just that. Thank goodness every day for Google Translate, because I don't speak Chinese and I don't speak Spanish and I don't speak French, and I bumble through it all. But I was able to make connections around the world to the most inspiring, amazing people in every walk of life, dealing with their own traumas, embracing them, working with them, and moving forward, serving the world in different ways, in different fields. And every single person that I've written about, I have to tell you, continues to inspire me today.
Yeah.
And as fireflies, they continue to grow because we don't stop growing. We need to keep learning. We need to keep growing and expanding. And they keep doing new things.
All of you guys have been listening to us. We're going to put together all the links so you can get access to Julie's book, Become a Firefly, man. This world needs you. Many of you have heard people say you're no good. I want to challenge that statement and say that no, I think you know it within yourself. You're worth something. You're worth a lot. You're one of a kind. You're actually, I tell people, you're an endangered species.
That's
And because
exactly
you are an
right.
endangered species, you have the ability to change the world. You are one of a kind. They have industries that are designed based on your uniqueness, face recognition, voice recognition, fingerprinting. They wouldn't be able to solve a crime if we were all the same. Don't believe that lie. You are so special. Become that special butterfly. Take your trauma, as Julie has done, and many of those that are within that book, and take it and use it to shine in the darkness and change the life of others that are first change your life, change your family and friends, and change your neighborhood. Get into her space, man. I'm telling you, here is a woman that has done much. She has much wisdom and much. We haven't even tapped into all the things that she has done and what she is going to do. But I'm going to ask her one last question as we are about to close this up, because I feel I want to hear the answer to this. You have a mic. You're plugged into all of us. Several billion people. I think we're somewhere about 8 now, somewhere around there. You're plugged into all of us, Julie. What would you say?
One of the people, Ken, that I've written about is a gentleman named Fabio Chavez. He's in Paraguay. He started what we call the Recycled Orchestra, where he worked with kids that are beyond poor. I don't think we even have that level of poor in our poorest neighborhoods here. And they made musical instruments out of pieces of trash from the landfill there. And Fabio has worked with the kids that are there to create an amazing orchestra. They make great music. And Fabio lives by the motto, 2 mottos that I would amplify and share. They say the world gives us trash and we send back music. And having nothing is no excuse for doing nothing. They've truly taken nothing and created a whole world. And I look at that and I think if they can do that, I can do that. Every person listening to this can do that. That ultimately every one of us is here to be happy. And we have to take that path because our happiness brings light and serves other people and helps other people become happy. And we are, every person who's out there, we are good enough. We are deserving. We are worthy. And I tell everybody just you shine your light as bright as you can. And if someone says your light is too big to contain, then you simply hand out some sunglasses and say, if my light's too bright for you, I'm not going to dim it, but you can put on sunglasses.
Thank you so much, Julie. Thank you for coming to Threads of Enlightenment, and thank you for allowing us the space to join you with all of your wisdom. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you for coming to Threads.
Thank you, Ken. This has been an absolute honor.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to Threads of Enlightenment with Ken Primus. Hopefully you're now feeling more empowered to overcome the challenges in your life, whatever they may be. Share that inspiration with others by telling them about this podcast, rating it, and of course, remember to subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. For more connection, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for Threads of Enlightenment. Until next time, stay enlightened.